You know that feeling when you just want to have a good time, but someone just has to ruin it? Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one because the way it all played out, it was glorious. So, let me set the scene for you. It was my 18th birthday, and I had been waiting forever to throw a proper party. My parents were super chill about it, as long as we kept things reasonable. No crazy drinking, no destroying the house, and definitely no noise complaints. Seems simple enough, right? Well, enter Karen. Now, this wasn't just any random lady from down the street. This was the Karen of our neighborhood. You know the type, always watching from her window, calling the HOA over the tiniest things, and basically acting like she was the ruler of our cul-de-sac. She had already gotten my friend Jake's car towed twice for parking too close to her driveway, but I wasn't about to let her ruin my big night. The party started around 7 p.m. It was nothing too wild, just music, some snacks, and about 30 of my closest friends hanging out in my backyard. The vibes were immaculate. I had fairy lights set up, a huge speaker playing a playlist of everyone's favorite songs, and we even had a fire pit going for s'mores. And then it happened. About an hour in, I spotted Karen peeking through her blinds. She had that resting Karen face, you know, the one that says, "I'm about to ruin someone's night just for fun." I turned to my best friend, Mia, and said, "Well, place your bets. How long before she comes storming over here?" Mia smirked. I give her 10 minutes. She was way too generous. Not even 5 minutes later, boom, boom, boom. She was banging on my front door like she was the FBI. I took a deep breath and opened the door, trying to act as polite as possible. "Hi, Karen," I said with the fakest smile I could manage. "What in the world is going on here?" she snapped, arms crossed so tightly I thought they might fuse together. "This is a neighborhood, not a nightclub. You're disturbing the peace." I gestured toward the backyard. "It's just a birthday party. We're not being that loud." Karen scoffed. "Not that loud. I can hear your obnoxious music from inside my house." Now, I knew she was exaggerating because we had the volume at a totally reasonable level. But Karen? She was the type of person who probably thought breathing too loudly was a crime. I was about to try and reason with her when she hit me with, "If you don't shut this down right now, I'm calling the police." And that's when I had an idea. A really funny idea. I leaned against the doorframe and smiled. "Karen, if you want to call the cops, go ahead." Her eyes widened, like she wasn't expecting me to agree, but she clearly wasn't backing down. "Oh, I will," she huffed, pulling out her phone. "You're gonna regret this." Little did she know. I had a little secret. See my uncle? Yeah, he's not just a cop. He's the police chief. And let's just say, he doesn't exactly love people who waste police time with petty complaints. I watched as Karen angrily dialed 911, giving the dispatcher a completely over-the-top version of what was happening. "This is an emergency!" she shrieked. "There's a dangerous party happening right next door to me. I feel unsafe." I couldn't help but snicker. Unsafe? Really? We were making s'mores, not committing crimes. But hey, if she wanted to call the cops, she was about to get exactly what she asked for. And she was not ready for what happened next. So there I was, watching Karen stomp around my front porch, phone pressed to her ear as she dramatically described our dangerous party to the 911 dispatcher. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. I mean, come on. It was a backyard party with fairy lights and s'mores. The only danger here was someone burning a marshmallow too much. But Karen? Oh no, she made it sound like we were hosting an underground fight club. "There are dozens of rowdy teenagers," she wailed into the phone. "They're playing extremely loud music, they're causing a disturbance, and I even saw some suspicious activity." Suspicious activity? Girl, what? At this point, some of my friends had gathered near the front door, whispering and giggling as they listened to Karen's Oscar-worthy performance. Mia leaned in close. "Does she not know who your uncle is?" I grinned. "Nope, and I can't wait to see her face when she finds out." Karen ended the call with a smug little huff. slipping her phone into her pocket. "The police are on their way," she said, arms crossed like she just won something. I just shrugged. "Cool." That response? Yeah, she didn't like that. "Cool," she repeated, narrowing her eyes. "You should be worried, young man. When the cops get here, this little illegal gathering of yours is over." I wanted to ask her what exactly she thought was illegal about a birthday party, but honestly, I was having way too much fun watching her dig her own grave. So I just smiled and said, "Guess we'll see." And oh man, did we see. About 10 minutes later, we heard the sound of a police car pulling up to the house. The second Karen spotted it, she puffed up like she was queen of the HOA, ready to watch us get shut down. But the moment my uncle stepped out of the car, her smug expression vanished. Now, let me tell you about my uncle, Chief Reynolds. He's this big, no-nonsense guy with a booming voice that could probably make a criminal confess on the spot. But to me, he's just my super chill uncle who brings the best BBQ to family cookouts. He took one look at the situation. Karen standing there with her arms crossed like a school principal, me and my friends casually sipping sodas, and immediately knew what was up. But instead of calling Karen out right away, he decided to have a little fun. "Good evening," he said in his most official-sounding cop voice. "We got a report of a dangerous disturbance." Karen practically jumped forward. "Yes, thank you, officer, finally. These hooligans have been terrorizing the neighborhood all night. Arrest them, shut this whole thing down." I could see the moment my uncle had to physically stop himself from laughing. He turned to me, keeping a totally straight face. "Sir, are you the owner of this house?" I nodded. "Well, my parents own it, but yeah, I live here." Karen scoffed. "Aha, you admit it. This party is illegal." My uncle raised an eyebrow. "Illegal? Ma'am, what exactly is illegal about a birthday party?" Karen blinked. You could see her brain buffering. Well, the noise." My uncle glanced toward the backyard. The music was playing at a perfectly reasonable volume. He looked back at Karen. "What noise?" Her eye twitched. "To the crowd. It's out of control." At that exact moment, someone in the backyard gently cheered because they roasted the perfect marshmallow. Super out of control, right? My uncle crossed his arms. "So, just to clarify, you called 911 because some kids were eating s'mores and playing music at a normal volume." Karen's face turned red. I felt unsafe," she blurted out. They could be doing drugs." I dramatically held up my can of Coke. "Busted, guys. Guess we have to pour out our sodas." A few of my friends snickered. Karen looked like she was about to explode. That's when my uncle dropped the bombshell. "Ma'am," he said, his voice suddenly way more serious, "do you realize that calling 911 for a non-emergency is a crime?" Karen froze. What?" He nodded. "False emergency reports waste police resources. We have actual emergencies to handle, and you took up an officer's time because—" "What? You don't like hearing kids laugh?" Karen's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. She had no comeback. Meanwhile, I was just standing there enjoying the show. That's when my uncle reached for his notepad. "I'm going to need your name for the report, ma'am," Karen sputtered. A report?" He nodded. "Absolutely. You made a false police report. We take that seriously." Her eyes went huge. I didn't mean, I was just—" She looked at me, then at my uncle, then back at me. I smiled. "You wanted to call the cops. You got the cops." Karen turned bright red. She spun around and stormed off, muttering something under her breath about how this neighborhood was going downhill. Once she was gone, my uncle finally let out a laugh. "Man, she really thought she had you." I grinned. "Oh, I know." Mia clapped her hands together. "That was the most satisfying thing I've ever seen. The rest of the night, we partied, without a single problem. And Karen, yeah, let's just say she never called the cops on us again. But little did I know, she wasn't done with her revenge plan just yet. If you thought Karen was done, oh no, She may have lost round one, but she wasn't the type to just walk away. No, she was the kind of person who held grudges like it was a full-time job. And trust me, she was about to make things so much worse, for herself. After my uncle completely shut her down, the rest of my birthday party went perfectly. No interruptions, no problems, just good vibes all around. My friends and I joked about how Karen got owned in front of everyone, and we figured that was the end of it. Mia even made a toast. To the greatest birthday party of all time, and to the time Karen got a taste of her own medicine. We all laughed, clinked our sodas, and carried on with our night. Little did we know, Karen was plotting her revenge. A few days later, I woke up to my mom knocking on my bedroom door. "You're going to want to see this," she said, holding up an official-looking envelope. I rubbed my eyes and took the letter from her. "What is it?" "It's from the HOA." My stomach dropped. Now, let me be clear, we had never had problems with the Homeowners Association before. My family wasn't the kind to break rules, and my parents always made sure our house was in perfect condition. So why were they sending us a violation notice? I opened the letter and started reading. "Dear homeowner, it has come to our attention that your property has recently violated several community guidelines. The violations include unpermitted gathering of an excessive number of guests, noise complaints from multiple neighbors, failure to comply with neighborhood quiet hours. If these issues are not resolved immediately, you may face fines and potential further action from the HOA." I blinked at the paper. You've got to be kidding me. My mom sighed. "We both know where this came from, Karen." Of course, she must have gone running to the HOA, exaggerating everything to try and get us in trouble. But here's the thing. My parents were smart. My mom held up her phone. I already called the HOA office. Turns out they received exactly one complaint about the party, I smirked. "Let me guess. Karen?" Mom rolled her eyes. "Oh, absolutely, Karen." Now at first I was annoyed. This was just next-level pettiness. But then I had an idea. A very fun idea. The next day, my dad and I went to the HOA office in person to clear things up. We met with a board member, a super nice guy named Mr. Thompson. "We're here about this violation notice," my dad said, placing the letter on the table. Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses. "Ah, yes, that was submitted by one of your neighbors." My dad leaned forward. "And did you verify the complaint before sending?" "This?" Mr. Thompson hesitated. "Well, the report did sound serious." That's when I pulled out my secret weapon, my phone. Specifically, the security camera footage. We had front door cameras that caught everything, including Karen's dramatic performance and my uncle shutting her down. I played the footage for Mr. Thompson, letting him see exactly how full of BS Karen's report was. By the time the video ended, he looked furious. "So, just to be clear," Mr. Thompson said slowly, rubbing his temples, "your dangerous, out-of-control party was actually a birthday celebration with music at a reasonable volume." I nodded. "Yup. And the police officer in the video is I grinned. "My uncle, the police chief." Mr. Thompson sighed deeply. See." He shook his head. "I apologize for the misunderstanding. This complaint never should have gone through without verification. Consider the violation completely erased." I couldn't help but smile. "Thanks. But here's where it gets even better." Mr. Thompson frowned at the letter. "You know, this isn't the first time we've had trouble with Mrs. Karen Richards." "Oh?" "Do tell." Turns out, Karen had a long history of making false complaints. She had been reported multiple times for harassing other neighbors, but no one had ever gathered proof against her, until now. I tilted my head. "So, what happens now?" Mr. Thompson sighed. "Well, if someone is found to be making repeated false reports to the HOA, there are consequences." He pulled up Karen's file on his computer. "And given her history, she may be facing, let's just say, a significant fine. Now, I'm not normally one to enjoy someone else's suffering, but let's be real. She had this coming. I thanked Mr. Thompson and walked out of the office feeling victorious. A few days later, I was chilling on my front porch when I heard it. The scream. Karen's scream. "This is outrageous." I casually sipped my soda as I watched her stand in her driveway, waving a letter in the air like a lunatic. She had just found out about her fine. Mia walked up beside me. "So, should we feel bad?" I thought about it for a second. Nah. And, just like that, Karen learned the hard way that being a petty, nosy neighbor comes with consequences. But little did I know, this wasn't the last we'd hear from her. Because Karen? Yeah, she was about to go nuclear. At this point, Karen had officially lost it. First, she tried to ruin my birthday party by calling the cops. That backfired. Then, she tried to get my family in trouble with the HOA. That backfired. Even harder. Now? Now she was angrier than ever, and when Karen gets mad, she doesn't just let things go. Oh no, she doubles down. So remember how Karen got slapped with a massive fine for filing false complaints? Yeah, she did not take that well. In fact, she marched straight to the HOA office the moment she got the letter, demanding to speak to whoever was in charge. My friend Jake's mom, who works in the HOA office, later told us exactly how it went. "Down!" Karen burst in, practically foaming at the mouth. "This is a travesty!" she shrieked. "I demand that this fine be removed immediately." Mr. Thompson, the same HOA guy who had reviewed our case, barely even looked up. "Ma'am, the fine is final. You have a history of false reports, and this was the last straw." Karen slammed her purse on the counter. "This is a conspiracy," Thompson sighed. "Karen, the HOA is not out to get you. You were caught lying. We have video proof." Karen's face turned purple. You mean that boy got me fined?" "By that boy, she meant me," Mr. Thompson simply nodded. "Yup." Now, at this point, a normal person would cut their losses and move on. But Karen? Oh, Karen decided to take things to a whole new level of crazy. A couple of days later, my uncle stopped by for dinner. He had this weird smirk on his face as he sat down at the table. "So," he said, looking directly at me, "guess who made an anonymous report against you?" I blinked. "Wait. What?" He chuckled. "Someone who definitely wasn't anonymous called the police station and reported that you and your friends were engaging in suspicious activity at your house." I nearly spit out my drink. "You're joking." My uncle shook his head. "Nope. They said you had strange visitors coming and going and that there was a strong smell coming from your backyard." I burst out laughing. "You mean the bonfire we were using to make s'mores?" Mia, who was sitting next to me, nearly fell out of her chair laughing. My uncle grinned. "Yup, that's the one." Then he leaned back and folded his arms. "But the best part, the anonymous caller used her real number." I gasped. "No way!" He nodded. "Yep, and guess who it was?" I didn't even need to guess. We all knew. "Karen." Mia clapped her hands. "This woman is obsessed with you." My uncle sighed. "Look, we usually don't take these things too seriously, but when someone starts making repeated false police reports, that's when it becomes a legal issue." I leaned forward. "So, what happens now?" He smirked. "Well, let's just say she's about to get a very interesting visit from some officers. And this time, it's not going to be a friendly one." The next evening, I was chilling in my room when I heard knocking at Karen's door. I peeked out my window, and sure enough, there were 2 uniformed officers standing on her porch. And Karen? Oh, Karen looked like she had just seen a ghost. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught bits and pieces. "Mrs. Richards, we need to talk about your multiple false reports." Karen's voice rose dramatically. "I what? I have a right to—" "Ma'am, wasting police resources is a serious offense." Now at this point, I was dying to record this, but Mia texted me. "Don't let her see you watching." Just enjoy the show. And oh man, I enjoyed it. The conversation lasted about 10 minutes, and by the end of it, Karen was practically shaking. Officers handed her a piece of paper, said a few final words, and then left. Karen stood frozen on her porch, reading whatever was on that paper. Then, in the most beautiful moment of poetic justice, she ripped it up, screamed, and stomped inside like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Mia texted me again. That, my friend, is the sound of defeat. I grinned. Yup. After that, Karen finally backed off. No more false reports. No more HOA complaints. No more craziness. She still glares at me whenever she sees me outside, but you know what? I'll take it. Because at the end of the day, she played stupid games and won stupid prizes. But the real victory? A week later, I threw another party, just to spite her. And this time, she didn't dare call the cops. At this point, Karen had lost every battle. You'd think she'd just let it go, right? Nope. Instead, Karen went full villain mode. And this time I decided it was time for the ultimate revenge. So things had been peaceful for about a week. No weird complaints, no cops showing up at my door, no HOA letters. It was almost like Karen was finally learning her lesson. But then, one morning I walked outside to get the mail and noticed something weird. Our trash cans were missing. Now, this might not sound like a big deal, but hear me out. Trash pickup day had been yesterday, and I knew my dad had brought the cans back in, but now they were just gone. Then I noticed something else. Across the street, Karen was standing in her driveway, arms crossed, smirking. I narrowed my eyes. Mia, who had just pulled up to my house, got out of her car and followed my gaze. Oh, she did. Something, Mia whispered. I can feel it. I walked across the street and stopped a few feet away from Karen. Morning, I said, forcing a polite smile. Karen just sipped her coffee dramatically. Lovely day, isn't it? She said, voice dripping with fake innocence. I crossed my arms. Wouldn't happen to know where our trash cans went, would you? She gasped. Oh dear, did they vanish? I clenched my jaw. Karen, she took another slow sip of coffee. Maybe the trash company took them, or maybe you should just be more responsible. And that's when I knew. Karen stole our trash cans. Mia and I sat in my backyard plotting. This is getting ridiculous, I said. She's literally stealing our garbage cans now? What's next, our mailbox? Mia smirked. You know what this means, right? I looked at her. What? It's time for the final boss level of revenge. And oh boy, did we come up with a plan. That night, around midnight, Mia and I put on all black. Yes, like we were in a spy movie, and snuck over to Karen's backyard. And there they were, our trash cans, sitting right next to her house, like trophies from her stupid little victory. Mia whispered, This woman is unhinged. I grinned. Let's make her regret it. We carefully rolled the trash cans back home and placed them where they belonged. Then, we put our real plan into motion. Here's the thing about Karen. She's superstitious. I found out a while back that she hates anything remotely spooky. She once went on a rant about how her old house was haunted and how she refuses to watch horror movies because evil spirits are real. So naturally, we made her think her house was haunted. Mia pulled up her phone and showed me a wireless, Bluetooth speaker she brought. We hide this in her bushes, she whispered, and play creepy noises all night. Genius. We snuck over to her house and carefully placed the speaker just under her bedroom window. Then we snuck back to my yard, connected it to Mia's phone, and pressed play. At first, we started with soft whispers. Then, we added faint scratching sounds. Then, just for fun, Mia found an old, distorted recording of a little girl singing. And, at 2:13 a.m., we got what we were waiting for. Karen's scream. We peeked over the fence just in time to see her burst out of her front door. looking like she had just seen a demon. She was frantically looking around, clutching her phone like she was about to call for an exorcist. Mia bit her lip to keep from laughing. She looks like she's about to pee herself. Then Karen did something unexpected. She grabbed her purse, jumped in her car, and sped off. Blinked. Wait, where is she going? Mia smirked. Bet she's staying at a hotel tonight? And she was right. The next morning, Karen still hadn't returned. But you know who did show up? The HOA president. Apparently, while Karen was panicking about ghosts, she completely forgot it was HOA inspection day. And guess what? Her lawn was a disaster. Her trash cans were missing. And best of all, she had left her sprinklers on overnight, which flooded her entire front yard. When Karen finally came home, she found a giant HOA violation notice taped to her door. Mia and I sat on my porch, watching the meltdown unfold. Karen ripped the notice off, screamed, and stomped inside. Mia grinned, and that, my friend, is checkmate. After that night, Karen never messed with us again. No more complaints, no more police calls, no more weird HOA reports. It was over. The best part? A few months later, Karen moved. Rumor has it she claimed the neighborhood was too chaotic and that she needed a quieter place to live. Translation? She realized she couldn't win and bailed. As for me? Well, I still throw parties. And these days, there's no Karen to ruin the fun. If you mess with the wrong person, you might just end up haunting yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated. Your support means the world.